Well, welcome everybody to another video. Over the weekend, I did my coverage of basically just the trailer for the Secrets of the Obscure expansion announcement. I assume you're in the loop, you know what's going on with that. If you haven't, you can check out that video. And my plan really is now to start going through all the rest of the detail. We'll start talking about mechanics and stuff. But I had such a lovely response from you all in that video. A lot of really good comments. And I did actually ask, I said, hey guys, if you use the comments, I'll be reading them and go through them. I had so many cool things I want to talk about, like immediately, and respond to you guys, ran out some other stuff that is basically relevant just to the trailer. I thought, let's do this video today. I promise you guys will like it. There's lots of fun things that you guys have talked about, and I want to platform here. And then we'll continue along, and we'll start dealing with some of the more, gameplay aspects. There is, of course, the other half of the story information that they've revealed, details about Amatus and stuff, and I'm sort of still compiling what we know, because obviously there was what ArenaNet released, and then there is also all the third-party websites and extra stuff. I think I have a message on Discord from one of you guys about that too. So, yeah, let's jump in without much further ado. The footage of the background, I could have ran around Garenhoff and just film the Wizard's Tower. Hell, I even could have copy-pasted my footage from the video like 9 years ago. I don't want to do either of those. I don't want to go there in-game because there is an update, and I still haven't played it. I don't know what all the NPCs now talk about. I know, like, Snatches, and one of the comments in a second will go on about that. So, I didn't really know what to put. It's just world versus world footage. Maybe there's some novelty there on my Harbinger. You guys saw me play this Harbinger when End of Dragons came out. And then they've just sort of been sitting there, so I've decided to make them a bit of a world versus world character. I have two builds. I have a Celestial Condi, like, roaming setup using death magic, and I'm really bad at it. I don't really know how it works. I need a lot of practice. And the other thing is I'm basically just trying to find Zergs, so, and there's some fun little moments maybe in there. Mostly irrelevant. Feel free to alt-tab or whatever you guys like. So first comment here is from Artinotsapati 7311, who says, about the runes above the teleportation door. In fact, I'll put this at least. Here's a screenshot of what we're talking about. About these runes above the teleportation door. And by the way, it seems most people do agree this probably is some kind of portal, some kind of teleportation thing. Maybe it has something to do with the gods. We have 6 gods, like there are 6 of those runes. Also, the globes in that room are matching in number. 6 globes, 6 runes, so maybe they're somehow connected. Another thing is when I saw those runes, I thought about the new systems that will be introduced. There'll be a new rune and the relic slot. Maybe those runes above the door connect to that. Okay, I really don't think that you want to be thinking about the mechanics here. The relic system, I have a lot to talk about. I'm actually really excited about it. I know there's like ups and downs of the relic system, but oh man, I'm very excited about that. But I don't think it has anything to do with the story, guys. I think you can kind of just see that as a gameplay tack on that will have very little relevance. Guild Wars 2 isn't really that kind of game where they tightly tie stuff like that together. However, this thing about there being 6 of them, to be honest with you guys, I did not count. That previous video I didn't count them. And if I had counted and saw there was the number 6, yeah, maybe that is of significance. If you're unfamiliar with the Guild Wars lore, there is kind of this idea that among the 6 gods, each has a domain or a realm associated with them, and we've seen a couple of them. In Guild Wars 1, as I mentioned in the previous video, Underworld with Grenth, and then you had the Fissure of Woe with Balthazar. Those were both endgame locations. Way back in the day, there was an interview with the devs where they were asked, hey, are we ever going to get more of these? Because it seemed when Prophecies came out that they could keep expanding on them, but then they never did. When Janthir came out, we had different kinds of endgame stuff, and with Eye of the North, they did dungeons. There is an interview where they suggested, that Lissa had like this, I can't remember how they referred to it, like a mirror realm or illusory realm that would have been fun. There's Dwayna's Paradise is referenced, I think, in like a Canthan quest in Guild Wars 1. So there are these other realms, and in Guild Wars 2, if you remember at the end of Season 4 when we're fighting against Kralkatorrik while riding on Aurene, one of the absolute highlights of the whole story as far as I'm concerned, we're actually ripping through lots of different mist realms too. The map Dragonfall has a shard of Melandru's area that actually ripped out and came into Tyria. So, to come back to this door, what if each rune has a globe associated, and each is one of these realms that the gods once upon a time were ruling over and now have abandoned? So maybe there's actually a way to the underworld here, and maybe there's a way to, the Fissure of Woe, and that's the thing that's going to be really relevant for this story. I actually think this is a really good prediction. This being like an elaborate form of mist travel that requires we need to be somewhere where the mists are thin, we're at the edge of reality or whatever, and all the astral stuff. I think this is bang on, guys. I think it's very likely. And what that also does, quite excitingly, is there's this question of how are ArenaNet thinking with many mini X packs? And I know for some of you guys, you're going to be thinking at the moment, well, is it really worth thinking about the next mini X pack and the one after that and the one after that for us? But you got to consider, if you're ArenaNet and you're thinking of doing these one every year and a half or so, they have to be planning ahead already. And maybe they don't want to do one big long arc like the Elder Dragons, but maybe they are thinking the people that build this hub, Amitas, this wizard society, maybe even the wizard's tower itself, maybe this is going to be a bit of a hub, and we'll go to the Fissure of Woe, and we'll be looking at that in this expansion, if the whole Menzies theory thing is correct. We'll be talking about that in a second. Or, and then after that, they'll pick another one of these realms, and then another, and we finally will see Dwayna's place, and we will go to some of these more obscure locations. What I've just said there could sum up the next 5-6 years of Guild Wars 2 storyline. Like, it's an era, you know? Kind of like how Marvel, you know, they're doing their multiverse era, and then later there'll be the mutant era, or whatever, it's Saga, I think they call them, right? Maybe that's kind of the idea here, and so that's why we have 6 and 6. Either that, or it all means nothing really, and we don't have to worry, but I like that idea. And I've got some other comments about that door in a second, so let's move on to the next one. This is from Mish King, who wants to talk a bit about Zojja. Says, I don't know why, but I think that the Zojja we knew... By the way, I also had a comment, someone saying I'm pronouncing Zojja wrong. I know, it's Zojja. Look, Zojja is just like my natural inclination, and I have to say her name so rarely, because she's been gone from the story. You know, I've slipped back into my bad accent. You guys should just be happy that I don't wander around talking about Tyria and Lysa and all these other horrendous pronunciations I've had in the past. I don't know why, but I think the Zojja we knew, the commander, is gone and dead, and this Zojja we meet in this expansion will be a Zojja from another timeline or universe. This is a wild theory, and so we just propose maybe that the door leads to the different god realms, or ex-god realms, whatever we call them now. Maybe the expansion can give us a bit more detail on that. There is also this idea that it takes us to alternate realities. It's very plausible as far as the lore is concerned. Look at World vs. World, right? Those are alternate reality tiers. You can look at stuff like the Infinity Ball storyline. And yes, I saw some people saying, oh, is this Infinity Ball related? Because, you know, the orbs or whatever in the room. Hell, ArenaNet could throw that in there if they really like. I'm not so convinced, though. Just because from a narrative perspective, like if I put on a storyteller's hat, I do think it's quite scary and odd to mess with the stakes and what is real and what matters by doing alternate reality versions of Tyria. Now, if you guys remember last year, maybe a little bit before a year ago, I did a video sort of saying, here's all the cool stories that Guild Wars could do in the future, and I kind of mapped out, like, a huge amount of them. Like, I talked about World War Tyria and all this kind of stuff. It's bizarre to think we're actually in an era now where we're finally seeing what ArenaNet would have picked for that. And in that, I think I did say, you know, they could do alternate Tyria dimension stuff, but I think that should come very late in the day, and I'm a little bit scared of that. So I don't like the idea, but I do say maybe it's a little bit plausible. As for specifically this Zojja is an alternate Zojja, it doesn't have to be that way, guys. Yes, that would be an answer as to where's Zojja been, because you think she died and someone covered it up. I think it's perfectly plausible. I'm happy to believe that Zojja was just with this wizard society and had been obscured from us, as per the expansion title, for this period of time. I don't really think she needs to be, you know, an alternate dimension Zojja. This is a pretty fascinating comment chain here. I thought I'd pretty much got everything out of the footage in that trailer. But here we've got Grakon 4400, who says the portal in the Wizard's Tower doesn't just shut down. If you look closely, it flashes in and out between two realms, and the other reddish realm, you can see the shadow slithering away. And comments like this, I would have glossed over, but then Mango says, holy shit, you're right, looks like a tail. And someone else says a tentacle, eldritch. So I had to check this out. So here, look at this is some footage of what they're talking about. And I think you guys are right. It isn't just disabling. It is flicking into another realm. The visual effect is a little bit like what we've seen, you know, all over the place in Guild Wars. Some of the renegade skills, the World vs. World legendary trinkets, you know, Twilight, Eternity, Sunrise. In fact, Twilight's a really good one because, you know, it kind of has those red streaks in a starry sky when you look into it. It kind of does look like a window to another world a little bit there. A reddish world. Which, again, I'm going to say could be the Fissure of Woe, guys. I mean, lots of things to me are screaming Fissure of Woe and a screaming Menzies. That's not for sure. We'll talk about Menzies in a second. As for the tail thing, though, I don't know, guys. It looks to me just like a line. You could call that a tail. You could call that some kind of monster or demon or something flying around back there. And depending on how well ArenaNet render this new environment, if we're going there, would be cool. But I got to stop for a second there. As far as I'm not totally up to date and savvy on all the information that's been revealed. I am still pretty much out of the loop. So if you guys want to fill me in the comments, you can do this. It seems to me like ArenaNet haven't announced some big new exploration to the Fissure of Woe or anything, have they? So, what, would we just have minimal, like this Rift thing? There's this mastery where we're going to be going into Rifts. Does that mean we will see snippets of a location on the other side of Rifts, just like the current events, or how exactly is that going to work? They didn't confirm there's some like big new expansion to a place like that. And in fact, one thing I'm really trying to do with this X-Pack is lower my expectations. Now, I know that's a bit of a bummer to think about, but I think considering that it's got a shorter turnaround than other X-Packs, and when you look at the information they've revealed, that some of the places we'll be going to are like reconfigurations of areas we've already been, like how there's a second Garenhoff, this cloned Garenhoff or whatever. It feels like, to me, that's ArenaNet trying to get as much value out of pre-existing assets as possible, like as these islands in the sky that are jumbled together. And from that perspective, it sort of feels like, you know, they're trying to save money, they're trying to be efficient, they probably don't have a ton to make a whole new realm and really exciting, cool stuff. So then why would this portal be teasing us a place that they might not have actually built? I don't know. Maybe my expectations are too low. That's something I was kind of thinking about. I don't know. Do you guys think this is a tail, some kind of weird creature? To me, it just kind of looks like a line. But it's a cool enough comment chain that I wanted to show that to everyone. And it could be a hidden detail that I'd missed, certainly, on the trailer. Roasted Walnuts says, personally, I think the big bad at the end of the trailer, regardless of if it's Menzies, could be related to Deimos Samurog in the art style, and the silhouette looks very similar. Alright, so yeah, let's talk about basically, I've had a lot of comments on this topic. I said Menzies. I do think Menzies is a really good guess. There is this second guess, and it's Deimos. So Deimos is one of the first big, like, spotlights that ArenaNet shone on a proper, like, demon entity in Guild Wars 2 for a long time. And, you know, it basically had a whole raid wing about it. If you guys don't know Deimos, I seriously recommend you play Raid Wing 4. With all the power creep in the game now, it's very smooth to do. Either that or you can watch my video on it. It's basically my favourite piece of content ArenaNet ever made. It's really cool. And there's this amazing demon we see at the end of it, but he's kind of shrouded in mystery and we don't really know anything about him. So that then begs the question, is he coming back? Now, some of the footage, some of the screenshots, some of the art, I believe there's like a lot of arms and things. And lots of people think, well, maybe this is a Deimos related thing. Maybe we'll get more of Deimos from this new expansion in Secrets of the Obscure. And while that's a good idea, and people aren't wrong to speculate that, I think that that's fine, and you might say Deimos is a big boss in this X-Pack. I'm not too convinced, largely because of the way that Deimos, first of all, was framed in Bastion the Penitent itself, but then the way that the devs talked about it after the content was out. Because I remember one of the live streams they did where, you know, the Raid Wing had come out, they were asked, what is Deimos? What's going on here? And the devs were pretty open about the fact that Deimos might not even be real. He might have just been like a manifestation of Saul's, like, mind. It feels like it was a very specific, bespoke demon for that, like, situation, that area. Might not have even been real, might not exist anymore. You know, it's very, like, intangible. He never struck me as a character that they were looking forward to re-establishing other storylines later on with, or that they would ever want to do something more with. So I think when we're dealing with demons, which unquestionably this expansion will be dealing with, right? And when we're dealing with mist entities and stuff like that, you may see a lot of visual callbacks to Deimos, like this thing with the arms and whatever, you know, things will look recognizably like demons and they'll look fucked up and messy and stuff like that. While that's true, I don't know whether any specific lore about Deimos will be in this expansion. I'm kind of hesitant to say, you know, we'll even see his name. Again, maybe a small reference in a journal or something somewhere, who knows, something like that. But actually, the focus, I just don't see much cause for it, and I'm doubtful. As for Samurog, you know, I know Samurog's in the same wing, but Samurog doesn't necessarily have anything to do with Deimos or demons either. Samurog's just this interesting species that could be from elsewhere in Tyria, like the Isles of Janthir or something, could be anywhere. So, again, I know we have the forearm thing and a forearm creature in the key art. Overall, I'm not that convinced. And my best guess, I think, is the Menzies thing. Maybe I'm wrong. I had a couple of comments from you guys saying, oh, you know, don't get too excited about this because it's too obscure. I don't know, man. Guild Wars 2 players know a lot about Balthazar, and he's just a big part of Balthazar's story. It would be a good hook that makes it feel relevant to the Guild Wars 2 players. They think, oh yeah, I remember doing that in PoF. And isn't that kind of what we've seen ArenaNet doing with a lot of their storytelling recently? End of Dragons was full of callbacks to Season 1. The recent story they did, you know, this PTSD arc, where we started looking back at, you know, quite forgettable characters and elements of, say, the Icebreed Saga and other parts of our adventure. It feels to me like, yeah, Secrets of the Obscure might shine a big spotlight back now onto PoF and the Balthazar stuff. Sylvian Creed Marsh says, does this eye remind, speaking of Janthir, does this remind anyone of the Eye of Janthir? Do you think Janthir will come up at all? The devastation it seems to have experienced could be due to whatever sort of thing happens in the Wizard's Fife. And a response says, I think Janthir needs their own expansion. They can't dump everything in one yearly expansion, Imo. Yes, I agree with the second sentiment here. I think Janthir is really cool, and it's another big mystery. You know, in that previous video, I said, oh, what are the big props? What are the big recognizable things are there that people immediately latch onto? Janthir might be one of those. You know, there's nothing like tangible in-engine for us to look at, but there has always been that map art screaming at us. And not just in Guild Wars 2. In Guild Wars 1, when they expanded the Prophecies map to include the Eye of the North locations, Janthir was already on there, you know, so that's a lot of years for people to have opened a world map and thought, oh, what's that weird place? And then, you know, maybe finally get more detail. Again, though, this is one of those things where I feel like when I first heard about this Wizard Society, this secret group, I kind of thought, oh, man, they're just inventing a bunch of stuff that has absolutely no hooks into anything ever, and it felt odd. But I think the more weeks pass, and the more time goes by, especially once the expansion itself's out, and we start to accept, okay, this is a part of the setting, this is a part of Tyria, and once we've got over that, ArenaNet can use that to now talk about all kinds of stuff. There may be a Janthir connection to the Wizard Society, it's just not that important, it doesn't matter yet, until after this first story's done. And then, yeah, now they can use this, now that they've introduced this whole other rung to the story, basically, they can put that into anything they like, and they can plug Janthir, they can plug whatever, the Pyrite Peninsula, I mentioned that other video. So, and that's quite exciting. That feels like Tyria's breathing again, where all the doors were closing for 15 years, all the narrative ends and story directions. Now, by introducing this whole other layer, it feels like everything's opening up again. So to answer the question, I am confident the Eye of Janthir will be relevant sooner rather than later. I do think now that we've got a Wizard's Tower mini-X back and we know that they're coming with some regularity, lots of stuff feels genuinely on the table. I just don't know whether it'll be right now. It doesn't have to be connected. They are limited scope expansions. They can't do everything. And it's a big, for me as a lore enthusiast, it's a big enough ticket thing for me to be like, oh yeah, and excited about another mini-X pack. So do that separately, I think. Next we got Mr. Zilvis78, who said, some fail to realise Felicia Day isn't primary VA or an actress, lol. In the last few years, she's had kids, I think a single parent, only just got back into doing some VA and commercial work. Her only job in the last 5 years was for Mystery Science Theatre 300, which was like 30 minutes recording for all her part. I think she was just not available due to life being more important. Yeah, maybe you've got a point here. I don't really follow her or anything. I know she's kind of one of these internet personalities that you can do that and learn quite a lot about. But what I will say, a little note I wanted to put in the previous video but kind of forgot. I've always wondered whether the real-world production reason why Zojja disappeared from the story, because we talked about it very briefly in that video. I've always wondered whether, actually, it's that she came out for the Heart of Thorns work, right? And she did lend her voice for Heart of Thorns, but she had barely any role in Heart of Thorns. And I can very much imagine her going to Arena, going to the studio, whatever the situation is, the production manager, and saying, hey, look, I would like to continue being Zojja. It's fun, and I like the character, but I really want something more substantive next time I show up. So, can you do something more substantive for me, please? Because this was very minimal, and, you know, I came out and did this with Heart of Thorns, so can we do something bigger? And then I can totally imagine them saying, yeah, that's perfectly fine. We will have something more substantive for Zojja next time you come in. And with that, they're now thinking, oh, God, well, we don't want to just throw her in for a little moment with a random story patch, so we'll hold off. And while there have been moments in the story where we, the fans, are like, this is a big moment for Zojja, like her being there for the death of Kralkatorrik, because these stories were already so crowded with other things, with Glint and Aurene and all this other stuff, and they couldn't dedicate a lot to Zojja, it probably still wouldn't feel that good for Felicia to come in. So I can maybe imagine that sort of story. I don't know, I got a real conspiracy theory hat on here, but maybe that's a production reason why she didn't come in again, and this expansion now probably will have a lot of her, so that would be substantial, right? Dakarius says, I believe that the human figure on the concept art So this, the key art, is actually the commander using the Heart of the Obscure wearing the story-related set, which is supposed to be identical to whatever class you play. You can see the gif with someone with the same outfit using the Heart of the Obscure on the website and a different skin colour and hairs. And the Siren Jinn would be Garen, since an NPC states that no one has actually seen him, saying that they don't even know if he's human and his clothes could really be a magician-like. This is a very good idea. I just want to say, you guys might be right. I have to remember this, that usually when they're doing promotional material, there is a stand-in for the commander. That stand-in tends to change based on the era of the game that we're in. And this could be it. I've certainly tripped up on that before, especially with some Living World speculation. But then again, this is concept art. The stand-in doesn't usually appear in that kind of art, does it? It's usually just there in trailers or certain screenshots. So maybe later down on the press page, it is the stand-in. But I don't know, guys. I really do think this is a character. I think these are 3 separate characters, and I think this is Garen. And now, I know that they're small scope expansions, and I've been saying over and over and over again, I'm trying to lower my expectations and stuff. But the idea that they can only support 2 major characters for us, not 3. I mean, come on. I think it's Zojja. I think that then there's this Seer, and then I think we have Garen as well. It is totally possible, though, and maybe you guys are right about this, that Garen is the Seer, and is, you know, lots of characters all at once, including another character that's going to come up in another comment in a second. You could roll them all into the same single entity. I just think that would be a bit lame, and I prefer the idea that we have a few of them. Paradaxon says, they did a really good job with Garenhoff in the updates in the last patch. There are tons of NPCs talking about the tower going away. Some of it's even voiced. I went over the whole town with a fine-tooth comb, and every aspect of it seemed to have been updated, except the map completion guy. Not to mention, all of this is phased. If you go there with a character who hasn't finished the story, it still looks just as it was. A ton of things appearing and disappearing based on that, and I really commend the people who put this together. So much attention to detail. Yes, so technically, I have been to Garenhoff since coming back home and seeing all this expansion announcement stuff, but I went there on a character that hadn't played the story, while I was in the party with a character who had played the story, and it was quite striking. You know, all the golems and elementals are missing after the story is done. They also say, April, the NPC from the Mesmer Collective, is there too. Again, that's the Extra Life quest, guys, and I really recommend you play it. Play that Extra Life quest, or at least watch my video on it, because a lot of these, especially if one of these new characters is there in Garenhoff, a lot of these details may be relevant. I remember at the time I was calling out that I think it couldn't be a coincidence. She was from Garenhoff. It's too significant of a location. The devs had to have been hinting at something finally happening with the Wizard's Tower back during Extra Life. I definitely didn't expect a full-blown expansion, though. I think it's clear the Mesmer Collective is somehow connected to the new Wizard Society. It'll be interesting to see if they're the same thing or how they connect. On this case, I think they should be the same thing. You know, this Mesmer Collective, this secretive organization we don't know anything about. And then we have a wizard society that's the same. You know, there's spellcasters in both. I think really that they're both one in the same is just a lot cleaner. I already find it hard enough to swallow that there's this whole other layer to the lore we never heard anything about. So tying it to the Mesmer Collective, now that makes sense. The only issue is the Mesmer Collective, when we first heard about it in Season 2, I believe it was in Season 2 we first heard about it, with Casimir, in Season 1 with the Tower of Nightmares. They were kind of casual about it, like it was common knowledge that they existed, so I don't know. Maybe that's just Casimir being really well connected, but I like the idea that these two are one and the same. Jesus, I'm already running out of World vs. World footage here. So 2 more comments, and then we'll get on to the next video where we're looking at more of the details of the expansion. This guy's talking about the title, Secrets of the Obscure, and this is just a small point here. He says Secrets of the Obscure sounds redundant. It's like it was made up by someone who doesn't speak English, unless the obscure turns out to be a concrete something. Yes, so this is another cool point. I think what's kind of lame, I used the word nebulous before, like hazy, like it was woolly or whatever. I think the actual thing that I don't like about Secrets of the Obscure is what this comment's trying to get at, and that it's tautological, you know? It's describing the same thing in 2 ways, and therefore it sounds redundant and a bit off. But if this is a proper, as you say, concrete something, if obscure is a noun, if this is an object or a thing we can point to, suddenly it makes a lot of sense, and we know from the press information, it was alluded to in one of the comments just a second ago, that it is actually something. The heart of the obscure is this new relic, this thing that we'll have a mastery line associated with, it we'll be interacting with a lot throughout the expansion. That is a thing, guys. So I think the title actually with the help of this comment and some other thinking, I think the title's maybe not that bad, because we're talking about the secrets of the obscure, and when they say obscure, they're talking about this relic. They're talking about this item. And again, let's try not to think about the gameplay mechanic system here. So then it makes more sense. It's still weird, though. I would never advocate a title that on first appearance, before you know the deeper story or whatever, looks a bit iffy. Because, you know, at the end of the day, a huge amount of your marketing and whether people are even interested is going to be based instantly on that title. But yeah, I think once we actually get into playing it, that title works a little bit better. And the last comment here for this quick lore Q&A, based purely on the trailer, really. It's from North Stars, who says, one guess popped into my mind who the middle of the key arc could be. E. Ah, yes. I feel like this secretive order would be the perfect place for E to have resided, and the small amount of lore we've gotten in this group seems to have been able to observe events through the mists, so I think it would make sense that E was a member of this group and would help you out from time to time because he could see what was transpiring through the mists. E is a really good candidate, again, so we could merge, as I mentioned a second ago, we could merge all the characters. Garen could be E, could be Asir, could be Oberyn, they're all the same thing, right? You could do that. I don't want them to do that. As far as E's concerned, are we actually looking at E? Is Garen? That's maybe an answer to the question. There are lots of, like, Crichton-leaning elements to E. And so the idea that he's been in the Wizard's Tower the whole time somewhat makes sense. I mentioned in that previous video that a writer put 2 eyeballs in that Zojja thread. Where's Zojja been? If I think back to around that time, the devs were also talking a little bit, again, about E, and that it had been undecided who E was going to be, and they may have actually come to that decision, and E might be a part of this expansion. So, I don't know whether E is on this image, but I will go far enough to say that I think E being a part of this society makes a hell of a lot of sense, and could very much be a part of the story here. I think E probably is a part. Probably the best thing that they could do here, for me, with E, is reveal that E is a part of this society. Maybe even, would we accept E being the leader of the society? I don't think he should be the leader. I kind of want the world to feel big and exciting, so I'd rather not all the existing characters we know suddenly are in these really big, powerful, prominent positions. But the E is there, yet in the expansion, maybe we still don't actually get to interact with them. The one tricky thing about E being a part of this story is because all of this new story has essentially just been invented out of thin air. Saying, oh, E was a part of them feels a little lame, because for years we've looked at pre-existing areas and people and tried to connect E to one of those. And for it to turn out, oh, you never could have solved the puzzle because guess what, we just invented something new for it. That would leave a bit of a sour taste. So I think my favourite handling here is to say, yes, he's a part of this society, but also it's a character we previously knew, and the mystery will still go on just a little bit longer, right? I think that would be very cool. And, you know, if you think about long-term secrets and obscure things about Guild Wars, E is on the list. And this feels like one of those expansions to get to stuff like that. So, yes, I definitely should have mentioned E in the previous video. I'm happy to mention him now. I think you guys might be onto something. But are we looking at him in the art? I'm not too sure. Alright, so there you go, guys. Just a selection of some really amazing comments. Thank you so much for all the support. Again, I'm really sorry that video was out late. I will see you on the next one for new things to talk about, Amatas and the other things they revealed more with the press page. So keep an eye out. Have a great time, guys. I hope you had a nice weekend, and I'll see you in the next one very, very, very soon. Also, I'm a bit happier to say now that I'm actually getting some regular content here. I do have an affiliate link for this expansion. It's the same link that I put in the description for all my videos for ages now. I heard that it might be bugging and you have to like copy paste it or something, but it is down there. So if you guys are going to pick it up, please do feel free to use that. That helps out massively. I will say, you know, in terms of pre-purchasing, I've always been a bit leery about pre-purchasing any of the X-Packs. This one is probably more of a risky proposition than the others because we don't really know how its scale will be and so on. So, you know, I don't blame people for holding off for now. We'll see what we think as we go through as more information comes out, and especially as I get these videos out about how they're expanding the classes without these specs and stuff. I don't say any of that to be a downer. Just want to be honest and not really feel like I'm selling snake oil or anything like that. We'll just see how it goes. So yeah, thanks guys in any case, and I'll see you in the next one very soon. Ta-ta now.